Welcome to Surrender School.
The mission statement of Surrender School is, at Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions to those who want a healthy relationship with food. We do have some other people that are not part of the food thing, and that's absolutely perfect. We love it. But Surrender School the board has voted and will stay focused on food addictions. And the reason for that, it's kind of an underserved group of people, and we want to stay in service to them. So I love that. All right. So we are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions. All right. So this is what is going on. All the way to the left, you will see it says everything we offer. That is from the banner at the top of Surrender School homepage. And the drop down are all the things we offered. And it's more than this, but you'll see at the bottom of that section, it says Supercharge Your Recovery. That's a great way to get to Supercharge Your Recovery page and all the other things that we offer. I really want to encourage you to go check out the website. There are special interest meetings and so forth right now. The present, we are doing a Wednesday Drop the Rock meeting, and there's a bunch of other things. Note that tomorrow is Michael Naylor's book study, and that is on Type 3, Chapter 6, which we had to skip last month because he had knee surgery. All right, and then I want to point out two new things, and I'll go into those in a little bit detail. Those are the ones all the way to the right. And then in the future, we're going to be doing a book study on Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. And then there's also a yearly retreat that we do every year. I want to focus for a second on the two brand new things that start in February. One is, backed by popular demand, is the Step 1 Science. We call it SOS, Step 1 Science. It begins February 1st. It's on Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. It is organized in a way where you watch last year's video, and then Linda T is the one who teaches it, and then she's bringing more information. There's so much more happening in the world of the chemicals in our body, both brain and gut. So she's covering more information than that. There is a workbook to work through, or basically a manual that you read as part of it as well. So it has this is on the website, so you'll do that. In addition, Michael Naylor and I are working together, and we're doing something called First Friday Enneagram Exchange. And the first Friday of every month at 8 a.m. Pacific, we are doing basically kind of a conversation. It has kind of a podcast feel to it. And it's a conversation between the two of us. I interview him about his recovery, and all of it is pretty much going to be about Enneagram and recovery working together. How did he do that, throughout his long history with both recovery and the Enneagram? I will do it the same. He is really plugged into the leaders in the Enneagram movement. So I'm imagining over time we will have some wonderful invitees that we will interviewees that we will interview. It's an hour long, and about 20 to 30 minutes of it is that conversation, and then it's open for questions. So we're very excited about that, and that begins February 7th. So Linda's Step 1 Science begins February 1st, and the First Friday Enneagram Exchange begins February 7th. And that's Linda's is once a week for 7 weeks. The first Friday is the first Friday of each month. And that's as long as people are interested. When people show up, if people continue to show up, we'll continue doing it because it's like kind of endless. All right. If Surrender School has helped you, please donate. There is a donate button, and at the banner at the top, there's another button for donating. And once again, our expenses are things like the Zoom expenses. We also have expenses like obviously the website. There's other expenses that just for like back office kind of stuff as well. No one takes any kind of money. Nobody gets paid to do any of the work. It's all volunteer work. So great group of people, and always do we need volunteers. So, and we're going to start putting things out on the WhatsApp to talk about the volunteers we need. So, all right. So link to join the Surrender School. You can take a picture of that, or we can send, I think if somebody will post the invitation to the WhatsApp group in the chat, that would be great. I also want to point out, you can sign up for a daily Ennea thought from the Enneagram Institute. If you go to enneagraminstitute.com, it'll let you pick 2 types. So you might pick your type and then maybe one of your wings, or your type and maybe your husband or wife's type or something like that, but you can get up to 2. And it's really good. I mean, it really does help you focus throughout the day a little bit on your personality and how do you kind of get over yourself. At least that's the eight's my view. My view is it teaches me to get a little bit to get over myself. Okay. All right. So now let's take a moment and then we're just going to kind of put ourselves in a position that we are present. So go ahead and close your eyes if you would. Take a couple of deep breaths and just feel the breath going in and out of your body. Now feel your feet on the floor. Let go of everything that happened before now and everything that might happen in the future. And let's just be present here now. And together, let's do the simplified set-aside prayer. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know to leave space for what I have yet to learn. All right. The goal of this workshop is a personal journey. Our focus is to help you understand the relationship between your false self or your personality and your true self, and to treat yourself with unrelenting compassion because you are human. We do this by recognizing the unseen forces that drive our behavior with its passions, which in program we call defects, or in some cases defenses, and the fixations, which are the stories that we tell ourselves. And we do this by catching ourselves in the act when our ego causes us to act out our most persistent defects or defenses. And then finally, to gently remind ourselves to return to our true shining self. This is a lifelong process. It does not happen overnight. And self-love kind of is the answer. Okay, some things to keep in mind. We are working the steps by type. Most of you do realize that. We work the steps by type. You would need to know your type in order to work the step for your type. So if you haven't yet, take the test. It will guide you toward a type, and then you can answer the questions for the type. The second thing, I'm not an expert on anything. I've been around the Enneagram for a while. Well, recovery, 20 some years, the Enneagram, 5 years maybe. But there's lots of people out in the world that have written books, that do podcasts, that do YouTube videos and all that. Lots of experts out there. And please feel very free. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you study all kinds of other people because you learn something all the time. Self-contempt stops spiritual growth. This is the reason, one of the reasons that I talk a lot about love yourself, be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself, treat yourself with unrelenting compassion. And the reason I say that is because if you hate yourself, this is what I found in my life. If I hate myself, then I cannot grow spiritually, or I grow very little spiritually. And if I can love myself is when I actually, I just grow like crazy, which is wonderful. If you do the work, you will be supercharged. I think what I'm hearing back from everybody who's actually answering the questions is like, oh my God, because it's by type. It's so specific to the way you kind of come into the world, the way you view the world, the way you look at the world. All right. And then once again, I do recommend that you journal on the weekly question. And the reason I'm saying that is because apparently thinking is not one of our tools, but journaling, writing is one of our tools. And that's what we want to do. Okay. And then the following week, we'll share. Somebody is not muted. I don't know who, but you might want to mute. Okay. And then share in your journal the following week. Okay. So the plan basically is we come in here just like we have now. We share a little bit on the previous week's information on one little piece of it. And then I cover a little bit more either on the step or the Enneagram. And then we randomly assign you to a room. And the way that that works is we let Zoom assign people, and then we put the leaders in there. So if you go into a room and there isn't somebody that said, hey, I'm the leader, then the leader's not there yet. So give them a minute or two to get there because we have to assign them to the room. All right. Then what you do in the breakout room is you will share your experience with strength and hope on the weekly question. You read the question first because remember, let's say you're a type 2, you have the question for type 2, but there's other types in the room and they haven't heard that question. They haven't seen that question. So you read the question and then you have up to 3 minutes to basically share what you journaled on. All right. And then in the main room, we come back together again. And then that's, if you have other comments that you want to make besides stuff about the weekly question, you bring it back to the main room. So the people that are in charge of the breakout rooms will say, can you read your question? And if you say, no, I just want to share on what happened in my week, they're going to tell you, let's bring it back to the main room because the breakout rooms are specifically for the question of the week. And the reason that we do that is because we want everybody to hang around to the end of the year, and you won't if there's just like random sharing in the rooms. It has to be very structured, and that helps kind of everybody stay on track. Okay. I will walk through the website later because there's a couple of changes I want you to see, improvements to help relieve some confusion that's been there. Okay. I bring this slide up just because I really want you to understand inquiry is basically just asking questions, which is why we're doing the questions. And the reason that we do that is because what happens is when you answer questions, your patterns will show up as patterns. Your projections, the way you view the world, show up as projections. You can see, oh, that's just the way I'm seeing it, right? And the more that that happens, the more your personality can dissipate and the true self can come out. So that's the reason that we're doing the inquiry. And I think that A.H. Almas, who's one of the people I talk about that's an amazing Enneagram person, he's a good person to talk to, or I mean, to read or listen to. Okay. All right. So once again, this is the section where we share, and I want get anybody in the room, I'm going to stop sharing, do the step up challenge for this month. So each month, the third week of the month, I will introduce a step up challenge. And it might be the ones from one of the ones from last year, or it might be one of the recommendations from Michael Naylor in his book. But each third week, I will introduce a step up challenge, and let's see if anybody did the step up challenge. Okay. Thank you, everyone who shared. Thank you so much. All right. We are going to talk step one, and I've said this before, I'm a big book fan. I think that not only was Bill W. brilliant, he, what I believe was inspired by God. I mean, the kind of impact that he had on the entire 20th century is just astounding, and it lasts until there's millions of people who have found recovery because of Bill W. So I think he's awesome. I do think, however, I always jokingly say, and it's the big but that gets in the way, right? So it's like, okay, here's the big but. I think that step one has been a little bit bastardized, which makes it more difficult than it actually needs to be for people that are new. So if any of you are new to recovery, maybe my view of step one may help you. And I actually believe that it is Bill W.'s view, which is kind of self-serving, I guess, on my part, but you'll get it. Okay, so first of all, step one in the 12 steps is admitted we were powerless over food, in my case, that our lives had become unmanageable. And I want to talk about two different things that help me in my view of what step one means. The first is the word admitted. I don't know what it meant in 1939, but to me, in our world today, admitted is almost like, I admit that I took something. I admit that, yes, I ate that donut, right? I admit. And admit has I'm a bit guilty of something. And in reality, step one isn't really talking about being guilty of anything, right? It's acknowledging the fact that we're powerless, right? So, and that's a human nature thing. It is, and I actually have substituted, even though I used the word food when I went through this, I acknowledge that I'm powerless over reality. That is my step one now. Now I'm 20 some years into program, but mine is I acknowledge that I am absolutely powerless over reality. And the way I say that is reality doesn't give a shit about my opinion at all. And I'm comfortable with that. I like that. That makes me happy. As an 8, that makes me happy. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that is not an and, that is a dash. That is a dash. Some people read this, admitted we were powerless over food and that our lives had become unmanageable, sounding as if because I am powerless is why it became unmanageable. And that is not true. Because it is unmanageable, I am using something to try to make it acceptable, or at least even if not manageable. So the dash basically for me, the unmanageability comes first. It's what drove me to my knees and brought me to program, is the fact that my life was unmanageable, right? And now I admit I'm completely powerless over reality. I can't change the world in any way. I can't change other people. I fucking can't change myself, right? It's like that is what, but when you first come in, it's really, this is what makes it difficult when you come through the standard 12-step process, okay? Everybody that I've ever worked with as like sponsor, or if I go to workshops or whatever, they say step one is all about surrender. personal opinion, that is fucking bullshit. It is not about surrender at all. It isn't about surrender, because let's look up what surrender means. Surrender says, I'm yielding something to someone. And I go, yielding what? What am I yielding? What? And then to whom? And I'm a what? I'm yielding something that I don't even know what that is to someone that I don't even know who that is. Are you kidding me? Okay, I can guarantee you, eight's almost impossible. Six is absolutely impossible to yield something to someone and not know either the something or the someone. It is not about surrender, right? It isn't about surrender. Let's talk about what it is. It is literally, simply, step one is, my life is a mess. I cannot fix it. I have tried and I can't fix it. That is step one, right? We come on our knees and we say, you all seem like you have something that you figured out. I have not figured out anything. Right now, my life is a fucking mess. Do you know anyone who comes to program because their life is all together? No, this is too hard to work. Nobody comes to just kind of check it out. No, we're on our knees and we say, my life is a mess. I've tried so many ways to fix it and I can't fix it. All right. There's a scene in the Two Towers. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, right? And they're all sitting there in the darkness waiting. And then suddenly the sun comes up and the king says, or anyway, he says, and the sun rises. That's what step one is about. We accept this. We acknowledge that I am powerless and I'm getting ready to surrender. But I'm not ready to surrender yet. This is why step one was so difficult. And I sat in step one literally for years because I couldn't get out of it, because an 8 surrender, I'm like Buzz Lightyear. I never surrender, right? So I can't even imagine. Now I know. Step one is getting us ready. All right. So what I want to talk about real quick, this is a spoiler alert. What you are yielding, surrender is to yield something to someone. You are yielding your fear to a greater power. That's how the sun's coming up. You're going to yield your fear, whatever your fear is, and it is very specific to your type, to your greater power, to something stronger than you, to something that can manage these things. That's what you're going to do. But step two is where you learn about the greater power. But until then, surrender is almost impossible. It's a token surrender, because it can't be if you don't even know who you're surrendering to, or who you're yielding, or even what you're yielding. How can you do that? Now, the cool part is the question for this week. Question number 4 deals with your fear. That's why the last week of the month is about the step. And that final question is that final question that says, okay, can we say that we've taken step 1? And to me, can you acknowledge that you are powerless over reality or whatever your deal is, right? That your life has become unmanageable. And as a result of that, you acknowledge that you are powerless over whatever that is. All right. I'm excited that the type question marches along with this. I think that'll be really cool. All right. Okay, this is the lesson. This is what, by the way, what I cover after I cover the topic, like this topic that I'm going to cover is what we discuss in the beginning of the next week, right? So I have a plan, and the way that works is this is what we'll discuss next week. So I want to talk for a second about what makes step 1 difficult. I think if you believe, like everybody preaches, that step 1 is about surrender, that by itself is enough to make it difficult for most of the types. We have different reasons for not surrendering something that we don't know what it is to someone that we don't know who it is. We have different reasons for that, but that's usually what it is. But you can step away from the surrender part and say, step 1 isn't about surrender. Step 1 is about acknowledging that I'm powerless. That is what it's about. I tried to manage my own life. There's parts of it that are just an absolute mess. And that's because I basically have not acknowledged that I am powerless over reality, right? Doesn't care about my opinion. Okay. Now I want to talk specifically about what might be the thing that makes it tough. These have been updated since last year because I've learned about the 9s and the 4s and the 2s and much more than I knew last year, but they still could be wrong. So it's a summary of a potential roadblock. If it's not your deal, that's fine, but I'm just trying to give you something to think about. And I'd love, as you're answering the question for this week, because most of them deal with fear, is to think, is this something that is getting in my way? Because, by the way, we have a lot of blind spots. Each type has a specific type of blind spot. And when you hit the blind spot, you almost automatically deny, no, that's not it. That's not the problem. So see if you can kind of put this in there and just add that to the mix a little bit. Okay. For the type 1, they need to keep the perfect illusion going. They like to seem perfect. That's really important to them. That's why the share earlier, Shirley, when you talked about doing the type 1 and somebody criticized, and you right, the one part of you, which is the one is the wing of the two, right, is you're just you want to back away from that and say, wait a minute, right, because you don't want to be called out, right? Absolutely. Okay, so for the type 1, I need to keep the perfect illusion going, right? So wouldn't that be hard to admit that your life's a mess? I think it would be hard. Okay, for the 2 seeks their self, that sense of self in others. They seek that sense of self from other people instead of themselves, and they do it to be loved. And the comments very early in program that they will make is something like, how could someone as giving as me be an addict? How can that be? How can my life be a mess when I'm such a good person? That's the lament of the 2. Okay, for the 3, they seek themselves in others as well, but they do it to be admired. And then isn't the fact that I'm this successful proof that I can't be an addict? My life can't be unmanageable. I'm so successful. That is the lament of the 3. For the 4, this is one I did change. I feel intense emotions that seem to take over, and that is unmanageable, right? So they will admit that is unmanageable. They're not happy about it necessarily, but those intense emotions can sometimes feel like they're taking over, and then they have the sense that their life is unmanageable as a result of that, and sometimes it is. For the 5, they believe that knowledge is power, and they do think that if they know enough, they can solve anything. And obviously, that's not the way the world works, but that is kind of their view of the world. For the 6, very strong. This is why I said the 6 and the 8, but this is the 6. I cannot trust something I can't see. And when you come into program, you don't have any idea who your higher power is, really. You might have a God from your religion and all that, but this idea of this greater power that really can help you manage your life, really hard for a 6 because they cannot trust something that they can't see. For the 7, the whole idea of managing something limits my options, and it might not be fun. And 7s do like to have fun. For the 8, and I know this from personal experience, if I'm not in charge, who else is in charge? And if I am in charge, I will manage. I will manage. Absolutely. Until I can't, and I have to come on my knees to program. All right. And then 9, this feels uncomfortable. I'd rather be numb and comfortable than address whatever that is. I would rather just go ahead and just check out, be numb and comfortable. Life is good, right? The problem is if things aren't handled, right? Because, and once again, it isn't that I know the 9, that it's like sloth, but it's not laziness. It's that there's some belief that putting it off has no harm to it, right? And that's not true either, right? There's so many things that we lie to ourselves about. And that Michael Naylor says the way they've misunderstood the world, which is a kinder way to say they've lied to themselves than the way I say it. Okay. All right. So once again, I do recommend that everyone have a drawing of some sort, could be as rudimentary as this, that shows the arrows. I do recommend that you have a drawing like from the front of one of the books, or draw it yourself or whatever, but just something that shows you. And remember, the wings are next to you on the circle, right? So the 9 has the wing of the 8 and the 1. The 1 has a wing of the 9 and the 2. That's when people talk about wings. Those are the ones that are next to you. The arrows then are, one arrow is the where you go as you grow, and one of them is under stress, where do you go? Now, the cool part about that, which I'll cover in future weeks, is the wings and arrows. Both of those are trait types, or types that with traits that you can incorporate. You probably already have. If you've been in program for a long time, you've been incorporating those traits of those arrows and wings already. You already know, which I think is one of the reasons that the people have done where they're like Shirley did, or like Lauren did, where you went ahead and grabbed the one that was next to you. And that completely makes sense to do that. Okay, so I recommend that you have that, just that way you will automatically feel comfortable with what the wings and arrows are.
Sister got cancer.
Somebody is not muted.
Hard to hear that.
Somebody needs to be muted. Thank you. Okay. All right. So let's see what else here. Okay. Now, I've covered this before, but I want to cover it in because it's a big deal. And then these are the definitions, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the definitions. The passion, once again, is not I'm excited. The passion is the emotional state of the heart disconnected from the true self. The true self is our goal. We want, if we can relax into our true self, we will be happy, joyous, and free, right? That's our goal. The passion is of the type is what has caused most of the type suffering, and we don't realize that that is true, that that personality, that thing that we built up, that personality structure that's been defending us and believes that it is in defense of it, protecting us, right? That is what in most cases has caused most of our suffering. This ties to the way that I feel and also the way I show up in the world. So for the twos, right, if you think about that, give to get love back, is that's absolutely the passion of the tied to the passion of the two, and that has caused most of their suffering. I'm an 8. I got in people's face. That almost every one of my amends was getting in someone was to say I'm sorry about getting in someone's face. Okay, so the passion has to do with feelings, right, and then the behavior caused by those feelings. The fixation ties to the stories that I tell myself that make the passions or defects more acceptable. So if you've ever run when you're doing your step work and you run into one of the defects and you go, I don't really think that this is a defect at all. I really think that I understand that other people might think it's a defect, but I actually it's who I am, right? All right. That is a fixation kicking in. That is a fixation that kicks in. At the bottom of the screen, it says, if I never get past my stories, my passion or defect or defenses will always be in charge. I'm going to say that again in 12-step terms. If I never get past my stories, my defects will always be in charge. I have to get past the stories. So the way we do this, that's why we're doing the inquiry, because we want to see those stories as patterns that have showed up in my life. And then I basically, right, because I'm where I want to sit is in my true self. And I can't do that if I have these stories that I believe about myself and about the way I behave and the way I show up in the world. And I'll give an example here. When I don't sponsor anymore, but when I used to sponsor, someone would come in and they would talk about whatever. And I would tell them right up front, okay, I'm going to tell you that if you come to me with all this anger and angst and all this anger, I will never say to you, no wonder you're angry. I don't blame you at all for being angry, because I believe, like Bill W. said, that anger is fatal to us. It is fatal to us. All of us can have that, but if we live in that anger, we will never get out of it. You cannot do that. So, right. And it's the same thing with whatever that fixation. So, a lot of what we're going to be doing as we go through this is to basically work on the fixations, not just the passions, but what are the stories that I'm telling myself? And I stopped being a sponsor because I think about the 89th time that I said to somebody, that's a story you're telling yourself. That's a story you're telling yourself. That's a story you're telling yourself. And they got sick of hearing it. And I got sick of saying it. So, anyway, but so much of our world is made up the stories that we tell ourselves. So those are the fixations. We will be working on fixations as well as looking at the fixations and the passions. Okay. All right. The structure, once again, is basically part A is you do the question of the week, you answer the question, you journal about it. Part B is you come to class, we do some stuff that I just did now, and then we go into the breakout rooms to share the questions. You actually read the question of the week, which is question 3. You read the question before you share, and that way everyone hears the question, and also that keeps the discipline that we are answering these specific questions in the breakout rooms, which will help everybody keep coming back. And then you do the same thing again. You take the question of the week and so forth. Okay. Don't forget that there's more sharing to come at the end. And also we have office hours on Monday and Thursday for questions and sharing. And I love the office hours. They're very intimate little meetings, and I think they're very cool. Okay. Once again, we did this, the whole step 1 thing. What I want to talk about is what we are seeking by type. Just very quickly, I want to go through. So if you have identified your type correctly, then what will happen, at least I hope that what will happen, is that there'll be some part of you that longs to be these titles that Michael Naylor introduced. So the ones which are called in their personality, the perfectionist is really striving to be the true self, which is the merciful teacher. You notice it's still a teacher, but it's a merciful teacher, right? The twos, right? Instead of being called the helper, they'll still be a helper, but they're an intuitive healer. So it goes deeper. So the twos. And notice I changed it to a cartoon dog. That is still the cartoon of my dog, Mayhem. And you cute. He's a little love. Okay. For the three, they're striving, right? And once again, we do the work and our greater power helps us. Our greater power is what changes us. The connection with the spiritual higher power is what changes us. But the three becomes an inspiring champion. The four, the type four, becomes a creative alchemist, and an alchemist turns everything to gold. So they become a creative alchemist, turning things to gold. I'm going to use Melissa as a wonderful example of that. I watch her blossoming like every single day. It's so cool to see. And the people that come to the office hours, I think that really is helping the supercharge. At least it is for me. That the questions, answering the questions is wonderful, but to hear the other types and learn about the other types, it's just been amazing. The type five becomes the kind wizard, right? My husband is a type five, and he is that, right? And I actually am learning to like listen to him. He's astounded when I do because in my history I wouldn't. So okay, for the four, or, I'm sorry, the six basically becomes a courageous pathfinder. So they long to become that, and yeah, which is I think very cool. The seven is a joyful visionary. They're joyous and they look to the future with joy. The eight becomes a lion-hearted protector, and the nine becomes a gentle mystic. And a mystic is somebody who's spiritually seeking. So that is what you have to look forward to, which I absolutely love that. Okay. Is there something? So now we're wrapping up this month. We have one more question left, and it's
Thanks for recovering with us.